We're doing it live. Let's do it live. All right, everybody. So we got everyone's favorite guest, Craig Israelson from Utah, joining us again. And you want to put your beanie back on, Craig? You showing your Norwegian beanie?
It's kind of a nice beanie. Norway.
Looks nice. Looks comfortable. Looks like look at that. That's a true beanie right there.
That is a beanie.
Is that a Norwegian flag?
That is right there.
Is Israelson a Norwegian name?
It is.
Oh,
gotcha. From Kostfjord, north of the Arctic Circle.
How many? What generation are you? How many Norwegians before you?
My great grandfather immigrated in 1864.
Okay.
And I have been back to visit his home.
Oh, no kidding!
Still in use.
Yep. Wow. Where did they immigrate to when they first arrived?
Ultimately, ended up in northern Utah.
Okay.
And helped found a really well-known ranch up in one of the canyons.
So Utah reminded them of the of Norway.
Yeah, I mean, the little village where they came from. There's mountains around it, around the fjord.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are there mountains? I've never been in Norway. There's mountains? Okay.
Yeah, basically the mountains are basically the walls of the fjord.
Oh, I gotcha. And the fjord, what does that mean? Like a town or a valley or something like that? Or
a fjord is it's where the water comes in. So it's kind of like a river, but it's ocean water coming in. And New Zealand has fjords, Iceland has fjords, Norway fjords, Chile has fjords. Yeah, they're so beautiful.
And is the water super duper cold, or is it one of those things like one of those like Sweden or no, maybe Iceland? They got those warm water things you can like bathe in or something like that. I don't know.
It's called the Blue Lagoon.
Yeah.
It's ocean water, so it's cold in the fjords.
Here's my man Drewski. He says Craig's greeting from Minnesota, also Norwegian. All right, so there's Drewski coming in.
Nice.
We got enough Norwegians on here. My man Celtic Spirit says Norway kicks major ass in the Winter Olympics, home of the Vikings. And then Ted says fords or whatever they call it, fjords are quite beautiful.
Fjords, yeah.
Yeah, and no one else cares. Everyone's like, dude, everyone's like, no, just joking. No one else said that. It's like, go back to Norway, Craig Israelson. Is your wife? Is she a native? Is she a Norwegian?
She has more British blood in her.
Friggin' Brits, huh? Oh boy, the old blue blood Britons. I don't know what blue blood, but yeah.
It says they ate off silver. They ate off silverware. That silver would leach into the food and it would turn them a little blue. That's where that expression comes from. Yeah, the silver would taint their blood.
No kidding.
Yeah, silverware.
That's really where the blue blood came from. Is that the? Man, that's crazy. No way.
Yeah.
Well, you ever heard of beyond the pale? You know where that comes from? Beyond the pale.
I've heard the expression, but I don't know the origin.
Yeah. So the Brits when they invaded Ireland, they'd go literally the pale was where all the Irish natives were the restless Irish natives. They said, if you go beyond the pale, we can't guarantee your safety. That's
interesting.
Go beyond the pale. That's the Brits. And I learned all that in the Scots-Irish book that a guy, the old Secretary of Defense, I can't remember his name anymore, from 2006 had written about the Scots-Irish. What the hell is it? James, I can't remember. He was a senator from Virginia. Anyway, Vikings died out, said D.B. Douglas. Vikings died out. Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure that's true, but who knows? Craig's still here. How tall are you, Craig?
What's that?
How tall are you?
6'1".
Yeah. So Swedish people are pretty tall. Are Norwegians pretty tall too, generally speaking?
I think Swedes might be a little taller, actually.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of good-looking people in Norway, I imagine, huh?
There's a lot of blonde hair.
Yes, right, exactly, right. Well, if you like the Latinas or something like that, you probably won't be in Norway. But if you like the blondes, you'll like to be in Norway.
That is true.
All right, so Drewski, because he likes you, Craig, he says I have the best guest. That is smart dudes, because Drewski is your native Norwegian.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway, Craig, it was a wonderful year in 2024. Who would have thought? So let's see what you got in your software, man. Let's see. Anything you want to talk about first and foremost? I mean, the mic's yours, man. Just
I just continue to enjoy using the software myself.
Yeah.
And I upgrade it. The input from users is super valuable. So I've got those who are new to it. I'm going to try to do an intro, and those who have some experience with it, try to show you some things that are new. Let me present here, share my screen.
No, I need to do anything to let you. All right, here. I guess I got to put that up there.
Is that working?
Yep, there you go. I don't know if you. It's up there. We see your screen. So if you want to bring up the. I'm laughing because we already got negative Nellies. We've been talking, lightly for 5 minutes, and people are like, when are you going to discuss retirement?
Can you see the spreadsheet yet?
No, sir.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Right.
Let me go back and present, share screen.
I saw your I saw your screen, but I didn't see.
Okay. So share screen, window, entire screen. Maybe it wants entire screen.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's take a look. So I add you to. So here we go. Yeah, we're seeing it now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is called the Retirement Portfolio Analyzer. Let me just show you right here so you can see the words. This allows a person to test drive any sort of asset allocation. There's a whole bunch of variables you can change, but ultimately this is a retirement portfolio analyzer, test driver, evaluator, whatever other term you want to use. There's a couple of new features and it's actually a helpful way to give you kind of a broad overview. There are 6 ways that you can tell the spreadsheet, tell the program you want to withdraw money from your portfolio. Number 1, the first option is an annual percentage, such as 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever. So you're simply saying to the software, I want to take 6% of the portfolio's value out, withdraw it at the end of each year. The second option is the required minimum distribution, or RMD. The third is a static dollar amount, static meaning it doesn't change. The fourth is a static dollar amount in year 1, followed by whatever COLA you implement in years 2 through 25. The fifth is a variable percentage where you can specify the percentage that comes out every year, and it can change every year. And the sixth, and this is the new one, is a variable dollar withdrawal. So you can specify a fixed amount of money to come out each year. So that gives you an idea of how much latitude you have as the user to craft any sort of simulation or desired withdrawal mechanism. And they're the print tabs, and I'll show you the print tabs. I've added a little bit of information there. For those that are new to the Retirement Portfolio Analyzer, the best way to think about it is, number 1, it's not Monte Carlo. It's actual historical returns. And let me blow these up here. Here's what we're using. We're analyzing over the past 99 years these 4 indexes: the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, small stock, bonds, the aggregate bond index, and cash, treasury bills. So those 4 indexes are our source of data for the last nearly 100 years. If you want to expand that list of asset classes, we can, but now we have a shorter time frame. Now we can only go over the past 50 some odd years, from 1955 years. And so you add non-US stock to the mix, you add real estate, and you add commodities to those 4 up above. Most of the time tonight, we're going to spend in this 4 asset model because that's the longest history. We're talking 99 years. And so across 99 years, we have a ton of historical periods. Yeah. And I'm calling a 25-year window that's one historical period. And that simulates a person in retirement from the age of 70 to 95. And that's long enough to get a really good view of how their portfolio did in that 25-year period. I know somebody's going to say, well, what if I live longer? Well, but as you'll see in the software, if you started with a balance of $1 million and at the age of 95, you have 1.7 million remaining, do you really think you're going to run out of money?
Exactly.
And so the amount of money at the end of 25 years, if you're right down to the nubbins and have almost nothing left, then that's information. But the way that people use this is they don't use the software once and then come back in 25 years. They use it 5 years later. Okay, well, that then rolls out. Now you're 75. Well, that then gives you results when you're 100. So the 25-year period is perfectly long enough to get a really good sense of how this asset allocation and withdrawal method are working. The best way to understand the results that I'm going to be showing you is to think about every 25-year period as a person. So Susan made her first withdrawal in 1926. That's the start of the data period. Her 25th withdrawal was in 1950. Jamie, first withdrawal in 27, 25th withdrawal in 1951, and so forth. Connor, first withdrawal in the year 2000, 25th withdrawal in 2024. So there's 75 people that we're evaluating, and they all have their own rolling 25-year period. Okay, so let's go to the actual analytical sheet. Is that, Josh, can you read that? I mean, is that readable?
Not really. Yeah, maybe blow it up a little bit if you can.
Okay, will do.
All right.
So what let's do then, we'll just focus on the entries. So enter your data in bright yellow cells. So everything in bright yellow is what you control. So the current year, 2025, let's just leave it there. Retirement portfolio account balance. Well, let's put it at 500,000. Your current age, just for simplicity, let's put it at 73. And when do portfolio withdrawals begin? Right now, because you're subject to the RMD. So I'm going to enter that. And the asset allocation is right here. Let's say that you're a little bit more aggressive than, this is a 50-50 portfolio right here, 50% stock, 50% fixed income. Let's go 40, 25, 25, and 10. So that gives us a 65-35 portfolio. The total portfolio cost, right now it's at 50 basis points. That's half a percentage point. So for those of you who use Vanguard or Schwab or State, spiders are now ETFs. State Street has introduced a lot of ETFs in the form of spiders. It stands for Standard & Poor's Depository Receipts. And so anyway, 50 basis points, you can build a well-diversified portfolio for 50 basis points. Yep. That's not irrelevant. If you're using a financial advisor, then you might be at 1.25 minus 125. Let's just put it at minus 75 for the time being, 75 basis points. Okay, with just that information entered, and we're going to leave the historical adjusters alone for a second. You have, let me just scroll over. That portfolio over the last 99 years averaged 8.5%. The standard deviation was 14.88, call it 15. The estimated total accumulated capital after 25 years, 2.1 million. Well, to understand that number, we'll have to go to the budget tab, and we will in a minute, because that is, as it says, dependent on budget data. But with what we've entered, we know this. Our average, so starting with $500,000, and this asset allocation, 40, 25, 25, 10, 75 basis points, and the RMD determining, and the RMD, by the way, is these percentages right here. 3.77 is the first year at age 73. 12.82% has to be withdrawn in the 25th year. So over that 25-year span from 73 to 97, the average RMD was just about 7%. Just so you have some idea if you haven't seen it. I'm taking the RMD table and I'm changing the divisors into percentages because most of us don't think in terms of divisors. Percentages are a lot more intuitive.
Hey, Craig, I'm getting some feedback on your volume there. Maybe can you turn down your volume or something?
Yeah. Is that better? Is that better if I talk like so?
Hang tight. No. It just started literally about 2 minutes ago, and it's like
really
getting worse. I don't know what that is. Yeah,
that's
now it's
interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Is it still doing it?
Yeah. Let me. I'm gonna get you off for just a second. I'm gonna.
Okay.
Okay, it's definitely him. All right, Craig, you still hear me? Give me a thumbs up. You can still hear me. Okay. Let me bring it back. Yeah, that's weird, man. It's making a. Why is it doing that? Huh?
I think it's the beanie.
I still hear your voice well. It's just it is kind of in the background, but it's like getting worse.
Wow, weird.
Maybe step away from your. Just step back for a second. And just
okay. Is that doing it now?
It's his audio. Tell him to unplug his mic and replug to some guys. All right. It sounds like running water. Unplug your mic and replug. All right. So he unplugged his mic. Lance, you're not a happy guy, are you, man? Lance, I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not, but Lance doesn't seem like he's a happy guy. Oh, plug back in when he can there, Craig. He's like, when are you going to start the retirement conversation? Says Lance. All right, there you go, Lance. All right, good. I just want to make sure. Can never tell. All right, so I'm going to add Craig back to stage. There you go, Lance. Good job, good job. You never know in this troll era, Lance, who's... All right, there you go. You're back. All right, now you sound good. Right?
How is it sounding? Is that sounding okay?
Yeah, it sounds good now. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, and you can see the spreadsheet?
Yes, sir. Yeah, looking good.
Okay. So let's pick up where we were. We've got that asset allocation. From that, now we know that based on the analysis of 75 rolling 25-year periods, the average withdrawal was $63,923. That's just from the portfolio. Remember, we have to go to the budget tab to fill in the budget data. How often did the annual withdrawals increase year over year? 71.2% of the time. Okay. And that's kind of revealed down here in this graph, the graph with the green background. These lines represent the annual withdrawals for each person over each of their 25-year periods. And as you can tell, those lines are ramping up. That's all that graph is useful for, is just the direction, the trend of those lines. Let me demonstrate that. Let's go to a 4% withdrawal. Okay, I'm going to go to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You see what's happening to that graph?
Yeah.
So now it's flattened out and it's kind of heading down. That tells us that a 10% annual withdrawal rate is doable, but you're not growing the portfolio, as you see in the blue graph over here. It's also starting to kind of head down. But the reality is the portfolio can handle that. Your success rate, 100%. In other words, how often did the portfolio last 25 years? Every time. Because it's percentage based. And because half the time the withdrawals did not increase the next year, that's what allowed it to survive. Once we go to a different withdrawal method, such as you demand $60,000 a year or $40,000 a year, that's how you kill a portfolio. Is you tell it, don't have mercy. After a year like 2008, I still want the same amount of money out. Oh, well, that's going to probably kill it. Whereas a percentage-based, we know right there, it's in front of us. Half the time, your annual withdrawal will go down. So if you can live with that, then you basically guarantee you're not going to kill the portfolio within 25 years. How often did this portfolio, let's go back to RMD. How often did the RMD withdrawal keep up with inflation? 92% of the time. Well, not surprising. The RMD is an escalating percentage. It goes up every year, at least under current legislation. So that's the withdrawal information, kind of in the green area. The blue is the balance of the portfolio. So remember, we started with $500,000. The average balance after 25 years of withdrawals was $947,000. We basically doubled it, and it's the RMD that's coming out. And many of you are probably well acquainted with the RMD, and it probably is perceived as the archenemy. It's not the archenemy. The archenemy is a non-percentage based withdrawal. RMD is percentage based. As soon as you have a percentage based withdrawal, it becomes your friend, not your foe. So we need to soften our view on the RMD because it's not going to kill a portfolio. It's our behavior. In other words, the RMD is the minimum. That's what the M stands for. If we take out a lot more than that, we may kill it. And or if we bail, we get scared and we go from this 2/3, 1/3, 2/3 equity, 1/3 fixed income to a much more conservative approach.
Greg, it sounds like your thing is doing it again. A man, Mr. Whittam, says he thinks you have too much gain in your mic, if that means anything to you.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a camera microphone is all it is.
Yeah, it's coming back. All right, it's weird, man. Maybe unplug it again and plug it back in. It's just like it doesn't. I don't know why it keeps doing that. But
yeah, I've never had that problem. I do a webinar each month. No, never ever happened.
This guy says, "Do you have an audio panel you can access?"
Yeah.
He thinks you have too much gain, if that makes sense. Okay, I guess that's it right there. I don't know. It's beyond my expertise. But it's all right. Craig says he can hear you fine. I can actually hear you fine. It's just background noise. And we got. Okay. I remember it seems like go away after a little bit. Just keep going, Craig, and people.
Okay. Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, another guy says not a big sound issue, but he's used to loud noises. But I remember this happened before, and it went away after a little bit. So just keep running through it. We can still hear you.
Okay. So if we're back to the RMD as the withdrawal method, the portfolio balance grew in 92% of these individuals, these 75 different individuals. That's a pretty remarkable outcome. And so we do ourselves a favor if we kind of dial down the anxiety associated with this whole thing of worrying about the retirement portfolio collapsing. But just to put your mind at ease that it's possible to do that, let me show you how. So let me show you how to kill a portfolio. And then we'll go back to how not to kill a portfolio. So I'm now going to enter the word, or just a zero. Let's do that. Let's go that direction. So, and just to make the math kind of easier, let's go to $1 million starting balance. And I would like to have $60,000 the first year, right down here. So when I went from I had RMD right here. I typed in a zero. That opens up this other set of options as to how money is going to be taken out. So 60,000 represents 6% of $1 million. So my first withdrawal is essentially 6%. Okay. But as you saw a minute ago, this portfolio can handle 6%. But this isn't really 6%. This is a fixed dollar amount that happens to represent 6%. And then additionally, I tell it, you know what? I want a 4% COLA. each year. And if the portfolio return is over 10%, I want a 5%. No, let's make it a 6% COLA.
Right.
I want a 6% COLA if the returns were pretty good. So the overall COLA then for all these years turns out to be 4.18%. And there's kind of a cool feature. I don't know how many people have ever seen it because you kind of have to find it. But if you click on the detailed for asset tab, we'll skip the mountain graph right now, and you scroll down, it shows you what COLAs were implemented in what year in every rolling 25-year period. So let me zoom this up a little bit. So the first 25-year period was 1926 to 1950. So in 1926, the COLA would have been 4% because it was under 10%, but it was above zero. Then the next 2 years had a COLA of 6%. Then the next 4 years had no COLA because that was the Great Depression. And then 6%. Anyway, I'm going to now scroll to the right, and you'll get this cool kind of quilt optic effect.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So those are all of the COLAs as they actually triggered based on the return of the portfolio. Now, as we scroll over, you can see that anytime one of these lines in the green graph dives down to the x-axis, that means the portfolio died. You didn't see any of those lines diving down when we had RMD selected. So we look up and so now we know the portfolio did not survive every 25-year period. In fact, the success rate was only 81.3%. So roughly 19% of the individuals that we're studying ran out of money before 25 years. In fact, one person ran out in year 12, right here. One person ran out in year 15. There's a lot of information actually conveyed in this little graph as to what really happened. This blue graph is the portfolio balance over time. And you can see that it's almost like a French horn, just a horn instrument that goes out into the bell here on the far right side.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a number of, 57% of the time the portfolio balance grew. So the dotted black line is the starting balance of the portfolio. So a little bit more than half the time it grew. And this blue line with the dots, the blue dots, that happens to be what we call the sweet spot, or the sweet period, 1975 to 1999. That is a period of time where you had very few negative returns in any portfolio. And you missed the meltdown, the U.S. equity meltdown of 73, 74 on the front end, and your 25th withdrawal was the year before the tech meltdown in the year 2000. So that represents the ideal sequence of returns for those who are familiar with that SOR, sequence of returns expression. And I highlight it because that blue line and the blue dots will always be the best performer. But it represents an anomaly. And that's why we have to look at all of these rolling 25-year periods. If all we did was look at that, it's like, cherry picking to just show that one. I highlight it so that it really reveals, let's not use that one as our expectations, because it was so ideal. The average ending balance is about just short of 2 million. So, you're going to grow the portfolio in the years, in the time frames that you grow it, but 19% of the time you won't grow it at all. You'll be out of money. That's not a prudent approach. So that's essentially, like I said, that's how to kill a portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, you started with a COLA of 4% on a 6%. Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, it's pretty unreasonable expectations on the front end, and yet even with all that, you still only killed the portfolio. What, 1 out of 5 times? Is that right?
Yeah. And if you went to a straight 3,
Yeah.
now your success rate's 88%.
Yeah,
and so, if your main objective is to get to 100% success rate,
right,
or close to it, and figure out how much could I take? What's my max withdrawal without threatening my success rate? Well, let's go to 55,000. Now we're at 94.7. Let's go to 53,000. You're probably going to be stuck right there because you've got the depression years that are tough to overcome. You went to 50,000, you're probably, 98.7. So that means you had one fail. The one fail was in year 17 right here. And if you want to know which period that was, just click on the detailed for asset tab, scroll up. It was right here, 1929 to 1953. Because if that blue bar disappears, that's the year that it failed. And those two right there, they almost disappeared. Also years in the Great Depression. But that gives you an initial sense of an initial sense that you're in pretty good shape. If you're going to be percentage based, let's go back to say 5%, a 5% annual withdrawal. Wow, everything is really good. Your average out of $1 million starting balance, your average withdrawal is 95,000, just short of 95,000. 2/3 of the time, your withdrawals increased year over year. Nearly 60% of the time, you kept up with inflation. Your ending balance on average was 2.7 million. The portfolio grew 100% of the time. Yeah. It was larger than the starting balance in every single rolling 25-year period. The success rate is obviously 100%. If you're growing at 100% of the time, you obviously have a 100% success rate.
Which means you didn't spend enough, people. You didn't spend enough.
That's true. I actually had a client email that back to me recently and say this has helped him determine his upper bound of spending.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I always say if you got 100% probability of success, that means you haven't spent enough. I mean, anyone can have 100%, just don't spend anything, you're at 100%, but that's not.
Well, but what's interesting is if you keep using percentages, here's a 6%. Okay. Now we're at, let's start back at 4. So here's a 4% annual withdrawal rate. Your average withdrawal is 87.7. Let's go to 5, 94.4, 6, 97.9, 7, 99, a little bit of increment, 8, 98. Oh, that's it. Now you're hurting yourself. So at 7 would be your max. There's no reason to go to 8 if it causes your average annual withdrawal to go down.
Right.
And if you were watching also in the blue, every time you go to a higher percentage rate, you send your average ending balance down. Yeah. But as you go from say 4 up to 7, your average annual withdrawal increases at a decreasing rate. Simultaneously, at each incremental increase in the withdrawal rate, your average balance goes down. The average balance will always go down as you increase the withdrawal rate. But the relationship with withdrawal is curvilinear. It goes up, then it goes down. And that's one thing you can learn from iterative analysis of a tool like this is where is my inflection point in the withdrawal as I look at the withdrawal rates, and it's around 7.5% generally. Based on a lot of different asset allocations I've studied, that's pretty much it. 7.5. That would be the max withdrawal rate that you would want to take out. Let me enter custom just to show you that. So if you enter custom, now you come down, you've got this entry area for your custom percentages, and I put a bunch of goofy numbers in, and you can see by this roller coaster graph, as the percentages go 7, 6, 5, 2, 3, it's really messing with your withdrawals. The average ending balance just kind of chugs upward. as you would expect from a percentage-based withdrawal. If, on the other hand, you want to do dollar-based withdrawals, you would enter a 2 right here, like the instruction says. And now you have that open up. And this is your average, well, not your average. These are your annual withdrawals that you want to impose each and every year. And because they're dollar-based, you're now going to introduce a failure rate. And the failure rate's 4%.
Yeah.
And that's just really, unless your dollar withdrawals are pretty modest. I mean, if you went to 45,000 and did 45,000, actually, the rationale for this one is this. In all likelihood, if a person is using this method, what they're essentially saying is, while I have good health, I'm going to withdraw more. So they might do 70,000 out of the portfolio for 10 years.
Exactly.
And if that was 10, which it was, then they go to say 50,000 for a period of time. Oh, I could hear my own echo there for a minute there, Josh.
You heard your own echo?
Okay. Yeah, I heard it for the first time. Then you go to 40,000 for the last period of time. Okay, so that represents kind of that logic of more when you're healthy, or in a situation where you want to spend more based on whatever. Well, that's certainly logical. Doing so introduces a failure rate. That portfolio did not make it 4% of the time. And in one case, and it was during the Depression, the portfolio was empty in year 12. The other loss, or the other failure, was in year 19. The third failure was in year 20. But in the years it didn't fail, it was fantastic. Your average ending balance was $4 million. So it's kind of like the best of times, the worst of times. The best of times is you ran out of money early. That's pretty worst.
Yeah, the thing about that, it always cracks me up, is like, you're down to your last $50. You're not gonna. I mean, people just have common sense. Like, they're not going, I need to spend $70,000 this year. I can't.
Right.
You only got $50 in there, man. You know what I'm saying? People are going to start adjusting before they get that low.
That's right. That's right. And that's kind of built in to a percentage-based withdrawal method. I mean, that doesn't simulate the human decision,
right?
But it sort of does.
I think you had there with you were almost like retirement spending smile. You had it high, low, then back to high again. Isn't that what you did in that one?
Yeah. Let me show it to you again. Oh, well, we could do that. We could do the smile. So we went to 50, and then it would go back to, say, 70 with a lot of healthcare costs.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was sort of the smile.
Yep.
Kind of reflected.
Yeah, that's doable. Just buy into the retirement spending smile. I thought that was what you're doing there. So that's fine. But I mean, there's things. Custom, you can do whatever you want. That's what makes the software great, is that anyone can do anything they want. They want to do a retirement spending frown, go ahead. If you want to do a retirement spending smile, yeah, do anything. It makes it pretty cool.
Well, it is pretty flexible. And so the one additional block of yellow cells we haven't talked about are the adjusters. And this is for people who say, you know what, I don't think the future is going to be as good as the past. I want to actually alter the past. So I want to take 200 basis points off of large stock returns. I want to take 200 basis points off everything. I think the future is going to stink as far as returns. Okay, let's go back to RMD. So everything else stayed the same. Once we have RMD, we have the same asset allocation. So the question is, did we blow up the portfolio? Well, we started with $1 million. The average withdrawal was 93,000. The average ending balance was 1.1 million. So we basically, on average, held that thing together based on what we started with. So that's definitely doable. Let's put these numbers in your memory. So 94,000 average withdrawal, 1.1 million. If we go back to actual historical data, we're at 126. So about not quite a $30,000 difference. 1.1 to 1.9, so about $800,000 difference. Obviously, things are better with the historical data historical returns as they occurred. But it does give you that ability to be pessimistic about the past, meaning you're throwing a pessimistic shadow into the future, because you're using this. Anybody that's using this is using it to kind of estimate what's going to happen going forward. That's the whole point of historical data. And people that say, well, historical data is not valuable because we don't know if it's going to repeat, then I don't know what you do.
You use what you think, and that's fine, but that's still speculation. At least with historical data, it is literal data. Anything else is speculation. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right. I mean, yeah. I'll speculate we get 20% rate of return.
And if you want to see the actual data, just click on annual returns, and there's the year-to-year results for large stock right there. That's in 1926. That was the return of the S&P 500, 11.62. Here's the small stock returns. Here's the bond returns. Here's the cash returns. Here's the inflation, annual levels. And it's all there. I mean, there's no black box. Everything is out in front.
And standard deviations as well. That's a nice thing, is the standard deviations are on there as well. And that's...
standard deviation is down here. The sigma of the large stock, sigma of small, bonds, cash, CPI. So let's go to the budget tab, because that's really what customizes this to each individual. So the first thing you're faced with, let's go to a little bit bigger screen here, is your Social Security information. So you're asked to input what you think is going to be the COLA, or cost of living adjustment, in Social Security. Let's leave it at 2.5. Your benefit is $3,000. It's already started. Your spouse's benefit is say $1,600. And so then it grows those at 2.5%. Then you have your other monthly income during retirement. So if you have retirement income other than your portfolio, you enter that here. Let's say that's $2,500. And that's just all the way through. So I just copied that down. So we've entered the RMD on the previous tab. So that's what's showing here. And that gives us then the information about the monthly withdrawal from your portfolio. So and if I go back and say, it's not going to be RMD, it's going to be 4%. I come back to budget. Now it's 4%. And that's what that is right there. So this blue column is feeding off of whatever information you inputted into your portfolio data. So let's go back to RMD. So I want to show you something. So the average monthly portfolio withdrawal, based on everything you've inputted, is $3,100 in year one, $3,500, $3,486 in year two, $3,845 in year three, and so forth. So it gives you these estimated, or the averages as they occurred historically, to where in the 25th year, your average monthly withdrawal is $21,000. So to those who might be wondering, are we accounting for inflation? Yeah, the RMD is kind of doing that. I mean, that's one of the unintended, well, I say unintended, I assume it's kind of unintended, because the real intent of the RMD is to tax the money that we have to withdraw. But the side benefit is that we're probably going to do a pretty good job keeping up with inflation. And then, because the RMD was selected, this column K shows up. And it's asking, of that RMD, how much do you want to actually use, and how much do you want to reinvest? Because for a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, there are undoubtedly people who don't want to withdraw the RMD. They don't need it. They don't want it. They don't want to pay taxes on it, but they have to. And they don't intend to spend it on a trip or whatever. They intend to reinvest it in a brokerage account or in a savings account. And that's what this column is anticipating. So you're asked to enter, well, what's the interest rate on your reinvested RMD? Let's just leave it at 3. And you can do something kind of fun here. This is actually a formula. This 786 is 25% of the withdrawal. You could make it 50%. So I just go up and I'll just edit that. Let's go times 0.5. Then I'll just copy that down. So now half of your RMD will always be reinvested. And of course you could change that 10 years down to where none of it's reinvested if you want. And let's just do it. Let's just say at that point, now you're gonna spend it. Okay, fine. But for that first period of time, those years right there, you were reinvesting. That then gives you, with Social Security, other monthly income, and your portfolio withdrawal, those 3 sources, that is your gross monthly income from all sources minus your reinvested RMD. So that becomes a really key column in your retirement budgeting. How much of that monthly gross is taxable? You can enter whatever you want. Right now it's at 100, we'll leave it at 100. What's the income tax rate on average? 25%? Let's just leave it there. That gives us a net monthly right here in this column. That is your net monthly, that's gross minus taxes and reinvested RMD. That's what your spendable retirement income. In column Q is just an FYI, as we see here, just FYI. This is how much your tax is. That's just 25% of that number right there. And the next key column is the expenses, and that's tricky. So one option, and these are hard numbers, this 12,000. Actually, I don't think I told you right on something. 61. So let me just see a pen. I just want to make sure. But anyway, I'll come back to that. So the monthly expenses, probably the best way to think about that is not entering a hard number, which it currently is, but actually some percentage of your net monthly retirement income, column O. So one option is to do this. Whatever is in column O, I want to spend 90% of it, times 0.9. And just copy that down. So now that guarantees you're not overspending. Well, that's only relevant if it's relevant. So if you know your monthly retirement expenses are more than $5,500, that approach is not going to work. But if your budget is such that you can basically do what I just showed, you guarantee that you have a budget surplus. And that shows up here. Well, that budget surplus goes somewhere. Yeah, it accumulates. So once all the monthly data are in place, I just want to scoot over to CF. This is where some of the calculations are happening. So you've got your total income. I said something wrong, but it's right in the spreadsheet. So these 3 columns here, W, X, and Y, that takes all of that monthly information, which we've been dealing with up till now, and just turns it into annual figures right here, annual data. So year 1, based on what you've entered, your estimated net annual income is $73,000. Your needed annual income, which is your expenses monthly times 12, is $66,000. So you have a surplus of $7,300. That surplus accumulates right here in the dark green. And it's considerable. if you really do run surpluses each year, those surpluses accumulate by year 25 to over $400,000. And if that's not realistic, then you go back and you change the monthly expenses. I can't make it realistic for you. That's anybody who uses it, that's their job. But if you have a good handle on your budget as a retiree, then you can, with precision, enter that information in column R here. That's a super important column, obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of data in here. People just got to kind of get their hands dirty with it. Craig, what's how much you charging for this again? And what's the I mean, because this is so powerful that, my friends, until you actually use it, it's going to be tough to. You just got to get in there. I mean, you just got to start messing around with it. And the nice thing is you can email Craig if you have issues. He's not against that at all. What's your price for this now?
Well, it's 150.
Okay.
And that comes with an hour of consultation.
Oh,
so whoever buys it gets an hour of consultation each year.
Our individual consultation?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But as I've done in the past, when I'm with Josh on his podcast, I offer a discount, and the discount is $50 off of that. So it's $100. And then for those who want to renew, I mean, when you pay $100, well, so it's 150 minus 50 for Josh's people. It's $100 with an hour of consultation.
Oh, it's cool, man. Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you want to renew a year later, and I send out updates automatically to whoever buys it. If you want to renew, that's $100. And if you don't, then you don't renew. It's not mandatory.
Now, do you do any kind of, you said you were doing a webinar the other day. Do you do webinars on this specifically?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have in the past. Yeah, I do webinars for anyway, it's a firm back east. And not always. I mean, sometimes I do. There's other topics, but this RPA, the analyzer, is my favorite thing.
Right.
I mean, I write for different magazines, so I'm using this. I wouldn't say every day, but clearly every week. I
was just saying, like, do you have like a monthly support group kind of thing that, people will use it? You jump on and say, what kind of questions, Q&A or something like that.
Well, that's a good idea. I don't. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. I bet that'd be pretty. Frank, I don't know. Would you do it on, you got your own YouTube channel? I don't even know how you do it. Do you have your own YouTube channel?
No, I don't have my own YouTube. I know that you do.
Yeah. This guy says, this spreadsheet is 100% worth at least double what Craig charges. I love it.
Well, then
I mean, it is. The funny thing, Celtic Spirit says you should join Doge or DOG, whatever that thing is, Department of Government Efficiency. The interesting about the spreadsheet that Craig uses is that it's so in depth, it's a little bit intimidating at first.
Yeah, it can be.
And that's okay, because once you break the start a Discord for users, says Michael. I don't even know what that is. I hear all the time about Discord. I don't even know what that is.
Oh, I have some idea. Yeah, I need to have my kids or grandkids help me how to. It's funny, this spreadsheet is pretty intricate, and there's a lot of tabs you can't see. There are all the calculations. It's just so fascinating. We're often really good at what we're really good at, and then other stuff we're like totally not good at. Mm-hmm. And
well, spreadsheets, you're good at it. I mean,
I'm pretty good at spreadsheets. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, Craig, because I deal with tons of engineers, as you well know, because some of the guys who bought your stuff, and they'll send me, and I don't want to look at them because they're just a foreign language. And I'm just like, and so when I first, and I said this to you before, when I first got your spreadsheet, I was like, oh boy, another engineer, and with a engineer mindset. It's not a specific engineer with the spreadsheets, fanatical. But for your stuff, it's like, oh yeah, no, you just start making sense. Like you said, if you have the yellow, you can change things. And if you don't want to do 4% or armed, you just do a million different things. My man Gregory says he likes the spreadsheet as well. So just
Thank you. But and I want to show you these remaining columns because this is what is driving that number on the other tab. This number right here. This estimated total accumulated capital of 2.7 million. I want to show you the genesis of that because then it'll make a lot more sense. So 2.7 million. So here's year one. Year one, we estimated a $7,000 budget surplus.
Mm-hmm.
In the year one, for all 75 different people, their average balance was 1.066 million. We started with a million. Whoa, that was weird. Hit the wrong. And then the RMD. Okay, in this case, it is RMD. We did invest some portion of our withdrawal for a period of time, and then we stopped. So as you scroll down, here's the accumulated surplus in your budget. Here is the year-by-year balances, average balances of your portfolio. It maxed out at about 2.07, right about here, 2.11 million, then started to erode a little bit. It's reacting to something I'm doing on the mouse. And then you finished with 1.89 million on average. The reinvested RMD ended up to be $450,000, equaling, when you add those three up, that one, that's 2.7 million. That's where that number is coming from. That was a huge breakthrough for me to think beyond just the portfolio. The blue here is your portfolio, but that's not everything. You've got surpluses or deficits, and you've got RMD that's being reinvested. And though I wasn't taking those into account, now I am.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so valuable to spend a lot of time in the budget, actually. I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of just spend time here. This is the best place to really refine your data, whatever is in yellow. Yeah. Then go back to the 4-asset portfolio. If you want to make adjustments to asset allocation, let's say you're super conservative, 10% large stock, 10% small stock, 60% in bonds, and 20% in cash. Is that doable with what you entered in the budget, assuming the RMD? And you say, is it? Well, we started with $1 million, super conservative. My portfolio balance averaged about 918, so it dipped a little bit, but my estimated capital is 1.6 million. That to me becomes a really crucial thing, dynamic, because that's really the number. The balance over here, we can get sort of mesmerized by just the portfolio itself, but that's only one leg of the stool. The other is your social security, your budget surpluses, and any RMD that you reinvest. Now, if RMD is not the factor, if it's not the withdrawal method, if it's say 4%, I've drawn to 4, I go back to budget. Oh, here's where the reinvested RMD information used to be. It's gone. So in this situation, generally a person wants to ask, well, but my portfolio isn't all RMD and it isn't all non-RMD. I've got a mixture. I've got X amount in a Roth, which the RMD doesn't impact. The rest is going to be impacted by RMD. No problem. You'll just have to do kind of 2 iterations. So if your balance, your portfolio balance is $1 million, if 800,000 is in accounts governed by RMD, then run separate analysis for that. Enter RMD, get your numbers, then enter 200,000. That's non-RMD, so that's going to be a 4% withdrawal rate. Get those numbers, and then, put those numbers together. It'll just, for me to program that, it became a nightmare. It's just as easy for someone to just run 2 side-by-side analyses, and off you go.
Kyle something Kuyat is a CFP in personal finance. And he says he likes the spreadsheet. Look at that, Craig. You get many fans. Well, I don't know who Kyle is.
I think they just like the beanie. It's really the beanie.
Actually, my man, who was the guy's name? Lance is asked, what are those over your shoulder? Are they bottles or are they up behind?
Oh, Yeah, I collect soda pop bottles.
Oh, interesting. From just like you see, trash that are on the ground or something like that, or
No, from around the world.
oh, all right, interesting. I have a guy who collects old beer cans, and he's got some serious like old beer, like just it's actually quite fantastic.
That would be cool because there's been a lot of those. Yeah, I started when I was in college, a freshman in college.
No kidding. Oh man.
So I don't want to burn everybody's evening. There's obviously a lot more tabs here. Yeah. Let me just show you the 4-asset print. This has been improved. Let me blow this up here. So this is, if you want to just print it, this is how it's going to look. Scroll down. Oh, really elegant. I really like it.
Is that new? Was that there before?
Page 1 was there, but page 2 is new.
Okay.
And let me just go back and show you. So you've got the summary, what your balance was, your allocations, any historical adjustments you made, your expense ratio, your withdrawal method, and then the return of that portfolio. And this is the conservative one. Here's the average balance after 25 years. Here is the average withdrawal each year. Here's the average total amount withdrawn over 25 years. Your success rate. How often did your portfolio grow? How often did withdrawals keep pace with inflation? How often did withdrawals increase year over year? And then you've got your summary data from your retirement budget tab. So that gives you this estimated accumulated capital of 578. You've got your returns now in a couple different time frames. Even though this is the 99-year time frame, this is your average portfolio return over rolling 25-year periods. So there's 75 rolling 25-year period. Let me show you this real quick. What I'm doing is reporting this graph right here, essentially. Let me zoom it down. That portfolio that we have entered, so 10% large, 10% small stock, 60 bonds, 20 cash. Each blue line is the 25-year return. And then we have all these rolling 25 years. And so this gives you, this is a smoothing technique, gives you a sense of over 25-year windows, sort of over these retirement lifetimes, what was the overall experience for each individual as a 25-year block. And that's what I'm trying to summarize on this print tab. And it gives you a sense of, okay, here's 75 of them going back into the Depression. Then you've got 31 rolling periods from 1970 to 2024, a more recent cohort. Then you've got the most recent 25-year period, which is 2000 to 2024. And you can see, and this is really ugly, the most recent 25-year period is not a good one.
Yeah.
Let me go back and give a more realistic, let's go to a 40, 20, 30, 10, a classic 60-40 portfolio. Go back to the print tab, same message. The last 25 years, 5.66%. Wow. If you look at the 31 rolling periods from 1970 through 2024, it was 9.1. Same portfolio, just different time frames. So the impact of 2008, well, in this most recent 25, you've got 2000, 01, 02, 08, 2012, and 2022. You've got 5 or 6 really not so good years. And that is really manifest in this last 25-year period, which if you want to look at it historically, it's right here, that one right there. So it's not gruesome, but it gives you some perspective of where we are in return cycles. And we're not in a great place, but if you think in terms of regression to the mean, which I do, then what this says is our recent 25-year period is well below a regressed mean result, which are more reflective of a lot more 25-year periods. So using a regressed to the mean sort of approach, hopefully better times are in front of us. And then annual withdrawals. Here's your largest single withdrawal in year one, your average withdrawal in year one, and your smallest withdrawal in year one. I included this because of user feedback. And basically what the person said was, listen, I look at the smallest. If I can live with the smallest, I'm good. I am good to go. I mean, average is informational. Of course, there's only one largest and only one smallest, and there's a whole bunch, 75 numbers make up that average of 27,000. But they look at kind of the worst case scenario, and if that's doable, then they walk away. They're good. They're done. The last is a little graph. The green is estimated total monthly after-tax retirement income. The red is estimated monthly retirement expenses. Now, you remember we entered those as a fraction of the total net income. So that's why it's so well behaved. Once you start entering actual estimated budgets, spending budgets in the budget tab, that red line could be a little bit more erratic, because right now it's just functional. Anyway, I think that gives those who are not familiar with the tool a sense of what it allows you to do.
Yeah.
And that's my main objective tonight.
Yeah, so remember, we did. I put the link on Craig's website that you all can email for this retirement portfolio analyzer, and just say Josh sent you, and he'll give you the $50 off.
Right.
And then you'll have access for the whole year. If you wanted it next year, more power to you. If you don't, that's fine too. No obligation, and I don't get paid, so Craig's not paying me. It doesn't matter. I just think you'll get a lot out of the portfolio. Craig's keeping up with it. It just is a good tool, man. No other way around that.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I'm saying. That's all I got, Craig. I'm gonna take these. I got two dogs here looking at me
Okay.
outside, so I'm gonna let you go. But I appreciate you jumping on board. And again, guys, it's 712. The number 7. Spell out 12. 712portfolio.com. 712portfolio.com. And then and you just email Craig, man. No big deal. And we had over 100 people on here, Craig. So hopefully a couple of these people bite, because it's a wonderful tool. Why not use it? It's crazy.
Thanks.
I mean, if people say I use, what's that, Bolden now? New retirements became Bolden. Like that, use all the tools, but $100. All right, I'm gonna take my dogs out. God bless, Craig. Appreciate you being here, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you all.
See ya.
All right, bye-bye. Good boys. Good